The story began not in a boardroom, but in a restroom stall. The director of product strategy, Mike KW, Torrento, unaware of my presence, was heard complaining to another man about my taking maternity leave again. He joked coarsely about my pregnancy, while the other man, a younger, nervous-sounding individual, wondered if I should be home knitting instead. I stayed completely still, my body shaking as I braced myself to remain silent. I was 5 months pregnant, my small baby bump hidden by a large sweater. They assumed I couldn't hear them, which was a huge miscalculation. I was far from the weak HR pity case they imagined. I had once been a boxer and had survived 7 years in a male-dominated tech environment by mastering the art of weaponizing silence. After they left, I memorialized the moment by taking a picture of a paper towel dispenser with a unique scratch on it, a landmark to help me remember the stall dot later that day. I entered my office, pretending I hadn't just heard their crude jokes. Michael was waiting, holding a baby rattle. He congratulated me with a smirk and then informed me that a new employee named Kyle would be taking over all my projects while I was nesting. Kyle, a fresh-faced intern with limited experience, was grinning behind Michael. He had no understanding of the project management software I used and was expected to manage my entire workload. I took the rattle and put it in my desk drawer, a symbolic act that solidified my resolve to not just endure this, but to turn it into a public spectacle. What they didn't know was that I had already been meticulously documenting everything. This wasn't because of a suspicion of wrongdoing this time, but because during my first pregnancy, my maternity leave had turned into a sprit de shita masaka, with my client accounts being reassigned and the company blaming a resource alignment issue. This time, I was ready. I had a hidden document called Project Nest Egg, disguised as a yoga PDF where I logged every discriminatory comment, email, and meeting with timestamps and evidence. I even had a photo of a sticky note that read, "Don't get pregnant," in Michael's handwriting. However, Michael wasn't the main antagonist. The real power was with the CFO, Carla Viga. She hated me, not for my pregnancy, but for a personal reason related to her son. This was a detail I would come to understand later. For now, my focus was on my plan and my second pregnancy. I was already preparing for the fight. 2 days after the rattle incident, I received a calendar invitation for a meeting with a subject line that made my eyes hurt. Quick sync Kyle's ramp up, parental logistics. The subject line me treating my parental leave like a logistical problem. I accepted the invitation and went straight to a store to buy a burner phone. Not for calls, but to record the meeting. I concealed it in my cardigan like a microphone, ready to capture the soundtrack of my professional demise. Things got even stranger in the meeting. Kyle brought a gift bag from a bath and body store. Inside was a onesie and a note from him saying he looked forward to learning from me before you go. I smiled, opened my notebook, and began to document the proceedings. Michael started the meeting by saying they wanted to make the transition smooth and support me as a woman incubating a small human. Carla cut him off, stating they needed to ensure no knowledge was lost. She then asked how many hours I could commit, adding that they were adjusting expectations based on my diminishing availability, a point Michael quickly seconded, as being about biology. I asked for clarification, confirming that this was not a performance review. When Carla said no, I stated I would continue to document everything just in case. The room fell silent with tension. After the meeting, Carla made a strange, almost friendly comment about my having a second child, stating, "Some of us don't get that luxury. Must be nice." That's when I connected the pieces. I remembered a rumor about her son being fired from the company after flirting with me. Carla had noticed, and that's likely why she'd shredded my bonus that year. I realized she was carefully playing a strategic game against me, and I began to investigate her, not Michael or Kyle. What I found was more than just a petty vendetta. It was a criminal act. I resolved to not only save myself, but to bring down the whole system. One Thursday evening, when the office was empty, I went on a mission. I used a coworker's unlocked computer to access Carla's assistant's Outlook account. Within seconds, I found an email from Carla to her personal forwarding a legal memo about an urgent pregnancy clause audit response. I screenshot it and sent it to my burner phone. This led me to a hidden Excel file named Q4 Staffing Flexibility Plan. This document, which they called Operation Flex, revealed a plan to reclassify female employees of childbearing age as contracto adjacento to avoid parental leave guarantees. The file had my name in a pink row with a note saying, "Not a team player. Went hormonal." They had been tracking me as a problem. The most shocking discovery was a message from Michael dated days before the bathroom incident, suggesting they nudge me toward resignation subtly. Carla's reply was, "Keep jokes verbal only. No slack." I finally understood this wasn't a cultural issue, but a calculated campaign to get rid of women who became pregnant. Instead of getting angry, I smiled. I immediately texted my lawyer friend, Mia, a civil rights attorney. She told me to keep pushing and that they would make my harassers wish they'd handed you a cake instead of a coffin. I decided that my second daughter would be born into a revolution. The next morning, Michael strutted in, calling me Mama Bear and joking about my waddle world. He then told me not to go into labor during an upcoming client demo, saying they couldn't have fluid near the investor deck. I smiled and replied that if my water broke, I would scream in mute tones. I logged his comment, adding it to my file, which was now filled with evidence. The file was becoming a book of misogyny. 2 hours later, Carla scheduled a wellness evaluation for me with a corporate psychiatrist. I knew this was a trap to frame me as mentally unstable. In the meeting, the psychiatrist, Dr. Julian Rhee, asked me if I ever felt hostile toward management. I stood up, wrote down the California government code for retaliation, and declared that I had recorded the entire session for my attorney. His face went pale, and I walked out. Mia's response to my story was, "That's panic. That's usable. Keep pushing." What I didn't know was that Carla was about to make a move that would break the law. When I returned from lunch, my computer screen was black. My account had been disabled, then erased. I went to the IT guy, who looked at his screen and confirmed that my profile had been offboarded and terminated. The timestamp was 8:06 a.m., 6 minutes before Michael's water-breaking joke. They had planned my termination, hoping I would have an emotional outburst so they could blame it on my pregnancy. I calmly asked for a screenshot of the deletion log, reminding him of the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. He swallowed and sent me the screenshot, which showed my account deletion was triggered by CVGA Carla Viga. I immediately sent it to Mia told me to leave the building immediately and not to go back. 20 minutes later, we were drafting an email with a subject line that would shake the company. Formal notification of retaliation claim. It was 67 pages long, full of my evidence. We demanded an 8-figure settlement. Knowing it was cheaper for them than discovery, Carla responded not with silence, but with a counterclaim filed by Kyle accusing me of workplace harassment. They had prepared this as a smear campaign, anticipating I might fight back. Mia called, saying they were leaking the story to the press. My phone buzzed with messages from former colleagues asking if I had called Kyle an HR experiment. Mia and I escalated. We filed a formal retaliation claim with the EEOC and initiated early media outreach with a journalist who was also pregnant and angry. A headline soon appeared. Pregnant exec claims tech startup offboarded her midterm, filed false harassment charges to silence discrimination suit. Other former female employees, all forced out after announcing pregnancies, started contacting me. We realized this was a pattern, an ecosystem of discrimination. One of them, Carla's former assistant, told me Carla had once said she needed an assistant who could run errands without a stroller. We drafted a class action notice. Mia then served a deposition subpoena to Kyle in the middle of an all-hands meeting. The entire room froze. Carla, however, had already booked a one-way flight to Zurich, running from the mess. 3 hours later, the company's external counsel called me. He offered a confidential, amicable resolution. Mia, on speaker, rejected confidentiality. She said, "We're interested in accountability." She told him this was a civil rights violation, not a PR issue. He agreed to send settlement terms by the end of the day, but then an anonymous email with a screen recording from a private Slack channel arrived. It showed Michael, Carla, Kai, and others plotting to nudge me, toward resignation, and build a case against me if I tried another leave stunt. They had even scripted Kyle's role in the trap. Mia called me back and told me to pack a bag. The next day, we were going to hold a press conference at the company's headquarters with all the women who had come forward. I dressed in a blazer tailored to show my baby bump, not hide it. 37 women stood with me. Mia announced to the press that the company treats motherhood like malware. A woman from the Department of Labor gave me her card, saying my file was the matchstick they needed for a federal investigation. 2 weeks later, the company was hit with a formal Department of Labor investigation. Carla was still in Zurich. Michael had a tantrum. Kyle's Slack status said out, my legal team had built an armory of evidence. The most damning evidence came from Kyle's deposition video, where he admitted under oath that he had fabricated his HR complaint under Carla and Michael's direction for insurance. The next day, the CEO called. He asked for a quiet resolution. I told him my terms: an 8-figure settlement, a public apology, Carla's permanent resignation, and a Women in Tech scholarship with Carla's name on it. He agreed. I was awarded $11.2 million. Michael and Kyle were gone. I didn't go back to the company. Instead, I started an incubator for women returning to tech after maternity leave called Project Nest Rebuilt. Our tagline: not your HR departments. definition of support, when my second daughter was born, I held her tiny hand and whispered, "They tried to erase us, baby girl." Instead, we became unforgettable.